because they don't have ability to write comments on Riverside, right? You got to go on YouTube.
No, it's gonna be on the YouTube chat.
Gotcha. Hello, friends. Hello, two people.
Hello. Um, we have the. I think what's probably gonna happen. We're probably just gonna keep those other Pursuit and United shirts. So if you want to pick those up, do you think we need to get some? Do we think we need to get some polos? Do we need to look professional? We're gonna
Yeah,
be
we need
t-shirt
polo and
people.
apparently vest.
What do you mean vest? Like, oh, you mean like what Mike and Danny had?
Yeah,
It's like 65 degrees outside. We're like, we need our vests.
that's right.
Yeah. All right. Let me pull up my notes. Ready to get started?
Let's do it. There's some construction by me. Can you hear it?
Nope.
Okay, perfect. I can't do anything about it, so.
Let's see. I need a good opening. Um, I got maybe a good idea here. Let's see. No, that's stupid. I was gonna throw like a ludicrous thing because you're in Atlanta, but what do I do? Like move, bitch, get out the way? Like that's can't say that.
What's his first song that came out? What's your
Uh,
this week in
area
bourbon?
codes.
What's your fantasy? Or like
Making all your bourbon fantasies come true.
Jermaine Dupri, and what
We'll
didn't
just
he
use
have like
that.
a Atlanta song, Jermaine Dupri?
Well, Jermaine Dupri, yeah, he's switching 4 lanes like Jermaine Dupri. Cash
Yeah, but
down, or sorry, what was it? Top down, screaming out, money ain't a thing.
Welcome to Atlanta. Yeah, that was a song. Welcome to Atlanta
Yep,
with
there you go.
Ludacris.
Well, the play is play. Mm-hmm. He had
Welcome
area codes.
to.
Remember that one?
Yeah, I don't think we can say that. I.
Yep, can't do that one. All right, we'll just do making all your bourbon fantasies come true. We'll run with that one.
Okay, sure.
All right, here we go. The only people that'll get it, are people that are like here on the chat.
Right.
All right, here we go. It's This Week in Bourbon, making all your bourbon fantasies come true. And here's your headlines for May 12th, 2023. MGP and Luxco have acquired Penelope Bourbon for up to $215 million. Elijah Craig Barrel Proof moves to a variable age-stated release. And Mark Brown will step down as CEO and president of Sazerac beginning in July. But before we get started, here's a quick word from our partners. Hey, everybody, welcome back to This Week in Bourbon. And we're kind of making bourbon. We're not really making bourbon fantasies come true, but we are trying to do it with one bottle at a time. That's our fantasy with it, at least.
Trying to make some kind of bad joke because I'm in Atlanta right now.
It was.
You know, and
It was
tying
bad.
in Ludacris and Atlanta, they really don't really go together. But it's okay. It's doing the Lord's work today
Figured
down in Atlanta.
figured that'd be like your middle name, just Ryan Ludacris Cecil.
That's what my then instead he went with Chase instead. So
Ah,
I would have been
missed
much cooler,
opportunity.
Ludacris. But yep,
You went and
it's
got yelled on the bus in middle school, then would you?
that's right. Can't say seats taken.
Come on, Luda.
Luda, get out of the way. Well, in that song too, move.
Get out the way. Move,
Yeah,
bitch. Get out the way. Yeah. We did our best to come up with a Chris thing as the opening, but every single thing came down to, I don't know, derogatory terms for women or it was cuss words. We're like, all right, I don't think this will work. So,
yeah.
but
We'll
there's
stay
some
in our
other
lane.
upcoming stuff for Ryan and I. Yeah, exactly. Stay in our
This
lane. That's for sure.
this is one of those
Go
days.
ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say this is one of those days. I wish like a camera crew was following me around, just like so people
So you
understand.
know it's
Like,
not as glorious as it seems.
yeah, It's not like I'm running through my fingers through a field of grass and I have a DeWalt in my hand, drilling into barrels, looking at the glass to see if I get the perfect blend. But it's one of those days where you fly into Atlanta, you got to drive an hour and a half to your first account, and then you just go to store, just doing the Lord's work, selling one bottle at a time.
It's one at a time. Doing
I
it the
haven't
hard
eaten
way.
today. I haven't eaten. I didn't even get to like I bought a bottle of water at the airport and like Jeff, he's a hustler, man. He's our rep down here and he just had me going to store and like if I was hungry for lunch or anything. So I just kept going and I was like, all right, let's
Was he eating ham sandwiches in the car and just not telling you?
I guess I don't know. He must have had a packed lunch. I did not. Got to the
They
hotel
must
and I
do
was
this
like,
enough
"Can
that
I please have
they
that Cliff
they
Bar
plan
behind
ahead.
the?" Yeah,
Smart idea. Well, let me do a few different updates for things that are going on. So you're listening to this on Friday. We got a tasting that's happening at my local liquor store here in Louisville, Kentucky at the Wine Rack. Steve Breen, who is our ambassadors, is going to be doing a tasting there. I'm going to pop over and say hi. So if you're going to be in the area, please go ahead and do that. So that's going to be the Wine Rack, I think from about 4 to 7 p.m. And then if you're going to be in Owensboro, which I was actually at Owensboro this week, I did a great presentation with the Owensboro Bourbon Society down there. I would first off say shout out to, of course, our ambassador Jacob, as well as their, I guess you could say their president and leader Vince for having me in there. It was fantastic, very attentive and focused group, and I'm just forever thankful to be able to do things like that. So if you have a whiskey society or something like that, especially around Kentucky or somewhere close to us, we'd love to be able to present to you. Those are the things that we love is getting in front of our types of people. But back to what I was actually saying is that this weekend is also the Barbecue and Barrels Festival that's happening in Owensboro. And the ambassadors that I've just mentioned, Jacob and Steve, will be there pouring Pursuit United. So go and check them out. And last is that today is the end of the fundraiser coming to the final hours. Ryan, you want to give an update on that one as well?
yeah. So I guess at midnight tonight, Friday, fundraiser bourbon fundraiser for the Barrick, Josh Barrick. Um, last I checked, it was at like 123,000. It's which because I kind of made this. A lot of these people that knew Josh, worked at Distillery, donated these like really rare bottles. And when I told them I was going to do a raffle, they kind of said, "What? You're going to do a raffle? You're not going to do an auction?" And I was like, "Well, I think I can raise more money if we do a raffle with, lower a chance to buy." And so I'm I think when I tallied up like the auction items, it was going to be around $50,000 of, if like price. But I think we're at 123,000 now raised so far. So I'm glad I made the right choice. That it's been unbelievable the support. Thank you for everyone. It's Jessica messaged me and she said, in this very dark time, this is like a little bright light of hope for during this tough time. So thank to everyone that's donated and supported.
Yeah, very cool and good job on you. You've put there. I know it's been a thorn in your side doing it. I think there will be an opportunity in the future to talk about what does it take to actually create a bourbon fundraiser or raffle that actually has to abide by the law. And it's not as
I could,
easy as people.
yeah, we could do a whole episode on that because I've been living it for the past 4 weeks. It's not easy. As, just don't do anything with alcohol. That's alcohol business is just terrible. So don't do it.
There you go. Wise words from Cecil. And in that chat, John Henderson says that it is 29,000. So
What?
be really
Oh, and
awesome if
shout out
there's
to John for thanks for all his help, and you helped out a ton too, and the whole Trinity Parish, Dan Lally and Chris Nall, but yeah, John, huge help. Thank you all.
for sure. All right, you ready to start talking some bourbon release news or just
Let's
bourbon
do
news?
it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's our first. It's MGP ingredients, otherwise known as MGP to a lot of us, or maybe Ross and Squibb. It's announced that Luxco, which, if you remember, that they had acquired Luxco last year, so that subsidiary has reached a definitive agreement to acquire 100% of the equity of Penelope Bourbon and its related assets. So the acquisition includes all the intellectual property and inventory of bottled product, as well as Penelope's aging whiskey inventory on a debt and cash-free basis. The upfront consideration $1 million in cash to be paid at closing, with further potential earnout contingent consideration up to a maximum cash payout of $110.8 million, and that's going to be measured through December 31st, 2025, if certain performance conditions are met, reflecting the brand's current growth potential. The acquisition is expected to be financed using MGP's existing revolving credit facility and cash on hand, and it's anticipated to close in June of 2023. So, big first acquisition of the year. I believe we or somebody had called this already on our predictions of the year, and I believe it might have been me saying that Penelope was going to be the one that's going to get bought. I didn't know if it was going to be MGP, but it makes total sense.
Oh yeah, this is a obviously a win for Penelope, but a win for me too because they're already selling the whiskey to them, so they take their brand, all the distribution, sale. That's what Mike and done such a fabulous job at is like they've really figured out the sales and distribution aspect of this game, which is that's. I'm sorry, we had a episode where I think we talked about who's more important, the master distiller or the main salesman or something. And I think Danny and Mike have proved that the salesperson is the most important because they don't have a distillery, they have a great product with MGP, but they were able to go out and build this brand and build trade the distribution market and MGP hasn't been able to do with their existing brands, and so it's just we're selling them to it. It just takes Penelope's cost of on to thousands of dollars a barrel to hundreds of dollars a barrel of cost of goods, and so the margins that they're going to make, once I think I was reading that once kind of they get the cash, pay off this, payout to Penelope, it's really like $5 million at the end of it because how much saving you just think about how much savings they'll collect on the on the P&L statements from being the supplier now to that brand. So that may not make sense to other
Yeah,
people, but I guess explaining it right.
yeah. I mean, well, I understand it, but so we actually had an opportunity to sit down with Mike and Danny earlier this week. They flew in on Tuesday, and we went and met them out and just kind of hung out for afternoon, just kind of just talk shop. And I just remember bringing up the joke. It was like, it's funny that they ended up having to buy back all their whiskey from you. And it's like, yeah, got a nice premium on it. But
Yeah, because
this was also one of the other things is that, go ahead.
delay here. Sorry, um, but yeah, no, they and two like MGP was kind of like to support them. So they were buying stuff from brokers also outside of MGP because MGP wasn't able to support their needs. So now this kind of that problem as well.
Very true. Very true. And this was also one of the most confusing things because if you looked at a lot of the articles that went out, it basically said bought for 105 million. But if you paid attention to what this was, is that they get 105 million dollars on day one. That's going to be sometime in June, and then going into December 31st, 2025, they can have an additional maximum cash payout of another 110 million dollars based on sales performance. So, being looking at a to a 215 million, I think that's a pretty good lump sum of change there to be able to have her a brand. And I think they're pushing close to 90,000 six packs this year. So that gives you an idea of how kind of big in the scale of where they were going as well.
Yeah, I right now just to put us out of our misery. But no, it's a
Whatever it
huge
is. Yeah.
it's a huge payday for them, and well, two of the hardest working individuals I've seen. In the new startup brand. I mean, they really just pounded hustled, to get where they were. So it's been. I'm very happy for them, and it's been very inspiring. And I think it's too. I think it's good for long term that still shows like there's they think they can continue to grow that brand. That there's still room for um, the big six, I guess. So
For sure. And I was actually looking at our website. So if you want to listen to the podcast we had with Danny and Michael, go ahead and listen to it. It's episode 382. And oddly enough, the episode was called Building a Brand with No Distillery. And that just goes to show you it's like there's value in just having a well recognized brand. You don't have to have the distillery and the horsepower behind it. Granted, it helps, but there is power in having just a brand aspect of.
and a couple things they did well was like that an offering that could compete with Basil Hayden's, an 80 proof, entry proof offering that there were to Basil Hayden's, in that regard. And then so you had that, and then they, the toasted barrel off, as they told us, Elijah Craig and Michter's kind of really coined that term. You know, they did all the marketing, but didn't necessarily product that this is Michter's, and Elijah Craig didn't have enough product, and then Penelope was able to use that toasted name for theirs and kind of fill that need. And then and stuff they've done, really kind of had a ring that kind of appealed to a lot of people right now. So
Yeah, for sure. And I was actually listening to a great podcast. It's called Kimbo by Seth Godin, and there was one of the latest ones talking about if you like when's the right time to enter. And you probably can already guess is that the is when it's saturated. It's the same exact. And one of his examples was saying that today, if you think you have a good idea and saying, I've got a great app for the iPhone, be like, you're way too late. Like, you need to be one of the first movers, if not too early, to be able to capitalize on that potential growth. And that's what they did. They were able to kind of sniff out a lot of that stuff. They've been on the forefront of some of the finishes that have kind of taken off that other people are looking at copying or trying to mimic, and they've got great packaging to go along with it. So I think we've churched them up enough. But again, congratulations to those two. I think it's great to see that. There I saw a lot of comments, and people were like, "Oh, this is like what happens when Budweiser buys somebody." I'm like, I don't think that's going to happen. Like, these guys are still going to be there for quite some time, making sure the product stays consistent and still stands true to their mission and what they're doing as well.
yeah, they got that dangling over them, or not the buyout, but the earnout.
Yeah,
That
that's true.
that
Yeah,
another
totally.
$100 million. So they're not going it. Probably
Yeah,
it's
don't
better
screw
for
this
the
up.
brand. It's probably better for the brand because they'll get better access to whiskey, from MGP. So
Totally. All right, let's keep moving on here. So, BR Distilling Company, it's Memphis's oldest licensed distillery, is elated to announce that is now offering tours at the distillery, as well as a tasting in the newly opened 550 square foot tasting room. Fans of the award winning bourbon lineup will now have the opportunity to learn about the brand, as well as sample the three Blue Note bourbons: Blue Note Juke Joint, Blue Note Crossroads, and Blue Note Uncut. The personal tours of the 27,000 square foot production facility will be led by the Blue Note team, sharing their extensive knowledge of the brand and industry. The experience will offer guests an intimate understanding of what goes on behind the scenes, giving visitors a fascinating look into the history of the bourbon and the art of crafting it. Having recently landed on both Whiskey Advocate and Food and Wine's list of must buys with Blue Note Juke Joint, Uncut, and Blue Note Crossroads, they're offering an unparalleled experience like no other. Tours are set to run weekly on Thursday and Friday afternoons, and the experience lasts about an hour, and you can purchase your tickets online.
well, I, I've been.
I was waiting for this.
Hopefully, a lot of renovations have gone into this. Uh,
Oh yeah,
because
it's funny. So the reason we're saying this is because we actually got our start, and that's how we started Pursuit Series. Was actually working at BR Distilling Company in this actual facility, and you'd walk through, and half the doors didn't work. There was I think it was a, what was it? There was a urinal that like I had to stand
yeah,
on
I
my
was about.
tippy toes to be able to use.
That was I was about to just say that you walk in, Kenny's on his tippy toes, going on there? Then you get up to the urinal and you're like, damn, it comes up to my. It's too tall for Kenny.
Yeah, it's funny. It's just because we have a lot of great memories with inside of this facility, going there, thief, can jam, tasting through barrels, and I mean, for the most part, it wasn't anywhere that it was a workhorse. It wasn't supposed to be something where people came into, but it was like our little, I don't know, a little haven, I guess you could say.
I think they just the whole experience. They need a shuttle that takes you to Cozy's and back for Cozy's Corner for lunch. But that's exciting. Obviously, the brand's gone a long way since then. So you know, it'd probably be cool to give people an inside. Look at in the I guess sourced whiskey market and whatnot. So
Yeah. And I know that I saw Logan, who we've known for a very long time, Logan Welk. He's their COO, um, and I know he was doing a lot of the actual renovation. We were there at one point. He was
that's
renovating
right.
the upstairs office. He was probably doing it down there too. So not only is he knows about the business, but he can also tape and mud some drywall.
Yeah, I remember we are down. It looks like somebody dumped flour on him, from drywall sand. He was just like covered head to toe. You just see his eyes. But yeah, I did see it on the
I
website. It
can tell
looks
you
nice.
they got better couches now. They got better couches now than.
Yeah, I hope.
All right. So, in another headline, and this is a move to reassure that, who knows what's going to happen, and speculation and excitement and kind of all at once. But Heaven Hill has announced that it is going to be changing its beloved cast strength bourbon expression, which is Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. So, Hill said that starting with the May release of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, which is B523, the bourbon's age statement will now become variable to at least some degree, resulting in batches both younger and older than its classic 12-year age statement. So Elijah Craig Barrel Proof will now be barreled in small batches with varying age statements, and each batch of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof will have its own unique taste profile and proof as the years pass, and now a unique age statement that will retain the extra age characteristic the brand is known for. All other qualities of the series remain the same, which is non-chill filtered and uncut to preserve all the natural esters and taste components from the barrels to the bottle.
So wait, are each batch the specific age on it, or is it this like vague term?
It's a vague term. I believe Wade Woodard commented and they go, "Oh, so you mean they're going to follow the TTB rules? So if you're adding in a bunch of 12-year-old barrels and a 9 and an 8-year-old, well then you have to put €8 on the label." And that's pretty much what it comes down to.
Yeah, and I really don't mind this because I honestly think Elijah Craig's really good at 8 to. Some of the best barrels I've had are in that 8 to 10 range. So this doesn't. I know people will probably get in a fluster about this, but it doesn't really bother me.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. You look at it and they had already started down this path. They started doing this a long time ago when they took the big red 12 off the front and put it onto the side or the back, and then it disappeared. And then they're kind of doing the same thing here where the 12 was never really on the front of the barrel proof at all. It was in the back and you had to really dig and read into it. And it's just another subtle change. And I just remember it goes back to our episode that we had with Bernie Lubbers, and he goes, "Well, would you rather have bourbon on the shelf or not on the shelf?"
Right.
And it's basically what it comes down to. It's like if they can't do this, then you're just not going to have any bourbon on the shelf.
Yeah, then you turn into all the Sazerac products, and you don't want to be that. Or I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe you do. Maybe you don't. No, you don't.
want to sell product. You don't want to just become the wild goose chase.
That's right.
So, Covington, Kentucky-based Wenzel Whiskey has announced that it has assets and inventory of aged spirits from Savannah, Georgia-based Ghost Coast closed its tasting room doors back in September of 2022. Wenzel reached an agreement with Ghost Coast to purchase all the equipment used for distilling and nearly 500 barrels of aged bourbon and rum. The equipment includes a pot still from Vendome, and the barrels of aged spirits include a considerable amount of bourbon that is upwards of 7 years old. Distillery Now Consulting served to the broker the sale of the distillery and also handled the decommission and the relocation equipment and the barrels to Covington. And they have also mentioned that this is actually going to be the first time that they're going to bring distilling back to Covington, Kentucky.
Wow, that's cool. We know the Wenzel, right? Didn't we have lunch with him?
Yeah, yeah. This is Bill Whitlow's.
Right. Um, because that name sounds familiar. Ghost Coast. I feel like we tried to buy barrels from them when we first started on the Pursuit series. They made some good whiskey, I
Yeah,
thought.
exactly. Yeah, so you're right on track there. So they sent us samples. Remember, we kind of put out a bunch of feelers out there saying, "Hey, we want to start working with some small craft distilleries that make some good stuff," and sent us some samples. And there's one that stood out. I remember it was really good, and I don't know what happened. We just didn't follow up with it. But now you can see that we probably should have, and we might be the owners of some new Vendome pot stills and cookers.
We do need those. What size? Enough to
I
make
have no
600
idea.
gallons.
We couldn't. Yeah, we couldn't afford it anyway.
I'll ask Raffo. See if we could get another line of credit.
Yeah, there we go. That's what we need. All right. And so one of our other headlines is that Mark Brown will step down as CEO and president of Sazerac in July, when the company's chief commercial officer will now take over the new role. So New Orleans headquartered Sazerac said in a statement, as part of a long signaled and 8-year succession plan, effective July 1st, Mark Brown will become the Sazerac company's full-time executive chairman, and Jake Wins, currently the company's chief commercial officer, will become the president and CEO. Mark Brown got a start in the alcohol sector when he began working for his family's pub business in the UK in 1971. In 1976, he joined British cider maker H.P. Bulmer as a salesperson and became a sales trainer in 1979. He moved to the U.S. in 1980 as the U.S. field sales, and from 81 to 92, he served as director of new products, national sales manager, and eventually vice president of sales and marketing for Sazerac. Brown actually joined Brown Forman in 1992 as senior vice president and chief operating officer of the Select Brands Group for 2 years. He spent the next 3 years as president of Brown Forman's Advancing Markets Group before returning to Sazerac in June 1997 as president and CEO. So what a storied history there.
It is. Yep. And a lot of brands that have been grown since he's been there, and there's no doubt, no question that what they've done at Sazerac under his leadership is nothing short of impressive. It's we knew this transition was coming from a while, and you know, uh, that's all I have to say. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's no, I mean, and I think this kind of got leaked out a little bit about what was going to happen, but I think it's interesting to see how all this played out, because this was an 8-year succession plan that they already had planned a long time ago. I mean, what other companies do you think take that long to figure it out? It's got to be quite the it's quite the planning process to just sit there and have somebody sitting waiting for 8 years to go and take a position. So it's
Well,
for
Moses
them.
McCall did that. Maybe
That's
not eight
true.
years,
Becoming
but
the master blender or master distiller. Yeah,
yeah. But I mean, I don't know. I'll put succession plan to the master blending.
there you go.
Training starts today.
Yeah, I'm going to teach you how to start doing V lookups tomorrow.
Oh gosh, yeah. You probably want to quit while you're ahead.
All right, so scientists have discovered the perfect amount of water to add to your whiskey. So if you've ever been to a whiskey tasting, you've likely been encouraged to add a few drops of water to your glass to, quote, open up the palate. And this technique has long been employed in the single malt whiskey world for a while, but the amount of water that you should add is often open to interpretation. That is until now, thanks to a new study from Washington State University that reveals how much water is too much water. So if you're interested in knowing at what point you're diluting your whiskey and not allowing the palate to bloom, WSU researchers have capped it at around 20%. In other words, 60 milliliter glass, which is about 2 ounces of a single malt whiskey in front of you, and you like to add some water, don't add more than 12 milliliters, or the equivalent of 20% of the whiskey's volume. And this is according to Thomas Collins. If you Remember that name? He was actually a guest on our podcast back on episode 235. And him and WSU assistant professor and senior authority of the study added more than this homogenizes the whiskey and makes it all kind of start to smell and taste the same. And for this study, WSU researchers analyzed the volatile compounds of 25 different whiskeys across many different categories, including bourbon, rye, scotch, and Irish whiskey, as well as having a sensory panel analyze 6 samples to find out what right amount of water is. Specifically, the researchers looked at what they call the headspace above the liquid where the volatile chemicals can be found. Some are attracted to water and others are repelled by it. So, when you add water, the smell and the flavor will change. And according to Collins, peated whiskeys shifted from smoky to fruity after adding water, and bourbon from vanilla and oak flavors to more of a grain heavy profile. At a 60-40 whiskey to water ratio, panelists had trouble telling one whiskey from another.
Well, I mean, obviously it matters what proof it is too, right?
Yeah, because what was it? Like most people in a sensory lab are actually tasting it at 40 proof.
Right. So, but like if you're
But
at
that's looking for
120
flaws.
proof,
That's looking for flaws, not
yeah, yeah.
necessarily taste profiles.
So I guess, yeah, well, yeah, because if you have a 94 proof and you do 20% water, that's different than, I don't know, right? Because if you have 120, 2 ounces of 120 proof, that's kind of like not going to give this, but it does.
But I think
I
it's
agree with the. To me, when you start adding water and ice, it starts to, like you said, get those grainy, kind of like tea compounds that just is like the all the great stuff about whiskey.
but you know what we learned about this is that we just need to add a bunch of water to our peated whiskeys, and all of a sudden we're going to start liking it.
I don't know about that. You can't get rid of that. You may be able to get rid of the smoke, but you ain't getting rid of the dirt taste.
That might be true.
It,
All right. Well, that's going to do it. Go ahead.
I said the only thing it might make it taste better is like a bunch of Coke or ginger ale or something. I don't know. With
Yeah,
scotch,
we
I
can
don't
add
know.
ginger ale to it.
Yeah.
Go for it. All right. For the bourbon news, stick around. We'll be back with some bourbon release news. Hey everybody, welcome back to some bourbon release news, and this will be a quick one. We only got 2 to talk about, and let's go ahead and let's just get to it. So Hirsch Selected has announced the release of its latest expression, which, if we remember, they had Hirsch like the one. Well, that trend is continuing because now this the single barrel double oak. So, crafted in Bardstown, Kentucky, the single barrel double oak is a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey that has been double American oak and finished and used American oak barrels. Only 30 barrels will be released, and the single barrel double oak pays homage to Hirsch's famed A.H. Hirsch 16-year gold foil, while reaffirming the brand's steadfast dedication to uphold the A.H. Hirsch legacy through the curation of exceptional American whiskey. So the single barrel double oak offers 3 styles of single barrels, each comprised of 2 mash bills blended at different ratios. So the first is 72% corn, 13% rye, 15% malted barley, aged for 8 years. And the other is 74% corn, 18% rye, and 8% malted barley, aged for 3 years and 7 months. And the single barrel double oak will retail for a suggested retail price of $100.
For an 8 and 3 year blend.
It's an 8 and 3 year blend. It's been double barreled, so it was
Okay.
in new American oak and then finished and used American oak, which
Gotcha. So
that's
now
that's
it's
kind
not a
of
bourbon
different,
anymore, right?
right?
Because it
Well,
went
I
to
mean,
a
it says
used
it's
barrel.
yeah, you're right. It's just single barrel double oak, so it would be considered, I guess, an American whiskey. You're right.
Whiskey specialty now. Because it hit that used barrel. But, yep, I mean, be interested to try 8 year and a 3 year. Because they've kind of contract distilled from a, like, I can't really pinpoint where these are. I kind of know, but I'm not going to say. But I'd be interested to try them.
Yeah, like I said, I just thought it was interesting that they finished it in American used barrels because that's not very typical. You typically want to use a new charred oak barrel because that's going to give all of the flavors and essence and just kind. I mean, that's what made Kentucky Allen 2XO so great is because you just get like a lot more barrel character gets influenced because you have this all new compound hitting it. But this is used, so typically, I mean, it's I don't know, it's just kind of like a used car, right? It's like you don't have new components, you know, you gotta. It's just not going to have all the bells and
Well, this is probably going to become common because of the barrel shortage, So, um, a brand like Hirsch probably doesn't have the 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 contracts or ability to get these secondary barrels for finishing that Yanuch. And I think the industry as a whole is going to have to really look at this toasted and double oak thing, and like we're really wasting a lot of resources on these barrel finishes using another new charred oak just to get a bourbon category. So I think this is going to be a new or a continued trend you'll see.
well, and the other thing that's interesting about this one is that it's very analogous to what Chicken Cock did. But Chicken Cock came out and said that, yeah,
Because they
maybe yeah, it
took
was
a
something like
used,
that.
because they took a Kentucky whiskey, then put it in a new charred oak barrel. Because it was the Kentucky whiskey was put in a used barrel first, and then they put a new one, so it was reversed.
Right. And I think that's interesting to see this is that Chicken Cock came out and actually said they go, we're doing this because the market wants more double oak. And why they're doing is because you can just come on there, put it in the package, and be like, "This is double oak," and you don't know if what's used or not. And as long as it says it was bourbon at one point, people are probably just going to go ahead and buy it.
Hey, Penelope did it with the toasted. you know, it's Michter's and Elijah Craig did that, and then they put it on. People loved it. They loved. It's just the name, toasted or double oak. They just love that name.
All right. Well, we need to go back to the marketing strategy and
No,
put some
we're
stuff up on board.
idiots. We make things way too hard on ourselves because we're way too transparent and way again above doing trends. So
All right. Back to the drawing board. We'll figure it out though.
yeah.
All right, so here's our final news article, and that's Chattanooga Whiskey. I feel like they've got a new thing releasing every freaking week, but they have announced the release of Experimental Batch 31. And this is a red, white, and blue grist made with a blend of stone ground red, white, and blue corn varieties. This commemorative batch celebrates the 10th anniversary of Tennessee's Whiskey Bill, which in May of 2013 legalized spirits production in Chattanooga, Tennessee for the first time in over 100 years. And this is their 31st batch since 2017, and it's a high malt bourbon with these three stone ground corn varietals from Riverview Farms Milling, which is in Ranger, Georgia. So, along with that, there's more than 25% pale malted barley. It's aged over 4 years, bottled at 102 proof, and there was SRP on the press release, so I can't give you a price point. But I'm just going to guess somewhere probably around 50 to 60 bucks. Maybe, yeah, that sounds about right.
Well, Hirsch is keeping up with Chattanooga with coming out stuff. I feel
It's
their
true.
stuff too coming out with new. But did you say grits? Like step?
Grist, like
Oh, grist.
Grist. Yeah, I,
Okay,
I stumble on my words.
that's okay. I thought we were at Cracker Barrel for a second.
Get
We're
my
getting
shrimp and grits on.
yeah. Well, it sounds interesting. I always like what they do, so I'll be.
Yeah. And I mean, all this just goes to show you that you got to have these little small, just something to kind of get people keep going. So I like that, but it's just more things that we can learn and take to our own brand.
We just need better storytelling.
That's what it is. We're too, it's I keep
We're
talking about,
too
it's like just so
technical.
analytical. Hmm.
To be like just I don't even know the word. I gotta. I don't know. I'm struggling here.
That's you look like you take a nap before you go out later.
I do. I need one. I've talked too much today. I
You had
think
what?
I've just. Oh, now we
Well, I was
all
gonna
waiting
say you
on
had
each
like a
other.
6 a.m. flight this morning. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think I've just talked to me, and I was at a 4 in the morning. So I'm sorry.
All right. It's okay. Well, go ahead. Go get yourself some old fashions, get yourself a nice dinner, and I'll see you later.
It's kind of bed.
All right.
See y'all next
Well,
week.
that is going to, yeah, that is going to be the end of This Week in Bourbon. So make sure you subscribe, tell people about the podcast. And yeah, well, with that, cheers, everybody. We'll see you later.
Toodles.
All right. Bye, everybody on chat.